strange land. As we explore 1 Peter, Lord, and as we've looked, help us to see that our walk is a matter of being connected to you on a regular basis. In your most precious Son's name, amen. I heard a story the other day about a California license examiner who he had been out testing this teenager and who had just driven an almost perfect test. He made only one mistake. He made his only mistake, said the examiner when he stopped to let him out of the car. After breathing a sigh of relief, the boy exclaimed, "I'm sure glad I don't have to drive like that all the time." You know, the reality is that I think a lot of us think things like that. Well, I'm so glad I don't have to be like that all the time. I don't have to behave. I can be on my best behavior at certain points. And I think there are people who call themselves Christians who practice that same mentality. For an hour or two on Sunday mornings, they look, talk, and act in a manner that leads others to believe they're genuine disciples of Jesus. But the other 166 hours of the week, there's really very little difference in their life between them and the unbelieving world around them. We did a series a couple years ago called Practical Atheist, and we talked about Christians who live as if God doesn't exist in their lives. And I think there's a lot of us who do stuff like that. It's almost like they walk out of the doors of the church on Sunday morning and they think, I'm sure glad I don't have to behave like that all the time. The bottom line is that we get into that mentality that thinks, well, when I'm in church or when I'm doing something spiritual, this is my spiritual compartment, and this is my Christian compartment, and this is my work compartment, and this is my, and God doesn't say that we can do that. I think all of us would admit it's really hard to live consistent as a disciple of Jesus in this world, which is exactly why we're studying 1 Peter together, because the reality is that we are exiles in a strange land. In fact, Peter says to the wayward sojourners in one version. But basically what that means is that we're not citizens of this planet. Now, we get to verse 13 of 1 Peter. Yes, we're all the way up to 1 Peter 1:13. We've managed to do it in 2 weeks, get through 12 whole verses. But there's a notable shift in Peter's focus. The first 12 verses, his verbs are all that are known as the indicative mode. He basically just say they're stating facts. But he goes through all this. This is what it means. 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 And then he gets to verse 13, and he changes it to what's called an imperative verb. Now, what that means is these are commands. In other words, Peter began his letter by explaining the reality of our salvation. Now he's going to describe the duty of those who have received that salvation. Now, please understand, all of this is predicated upon the fact that you're a disciple of Jesus Christ. And that's all you can. You cannot be anything other than a disciple of Christ or not a disciple. There's no such thing as a Christian who's not a disciple of Jesus. We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we were studying Romans, that you can't be a disciple. You can't be a Christian and not be a disciple. There's no way to separate the two. Jesus doesn't say go out and make Christians. He said go out and make disciples. So you're either a disciple or you're not a believer. And there's no other way around it. So, with that in mind, let me read to you 1 Peter 1:13 through 25. And this is quite a long passage, but just bear with me. I'll try not to stumble over it too badly. Therefore, preparing your minds in action and being sober-minded, set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you by the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance, but as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in your conduct. Since it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. And if you call on him as Father, who judges impartially according to one's deeds, conduct yourselves with fear throughout the time of your exile, knowing that you are ransomed for the futile ways inherited from your forefathers, not with perishable things such as silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without blemish or spot. He was foreknown before the foundation of the world, but was made manifest in the last times for the sake of you, who through him are believers in God, who raised him from the dead and gave him glory, so that your faith and hope are in God. Having purified your souls by your obedience to the truth for sincere brotherly love, love one another earnestly